Hey, what's up everybody? Will Mosby here, back with yet another video. And in this video I'm going to talk about how I built this utility shed for the back of the tiny house. I'm going to show you every step. Let's go. Alright, so before we get into the actual build process, there's some chapters down below if you want to jump ahead to the actual steps on how to do this. But let's just give you a little context to bring you up to speed. So I needed a utility shed, a garage, a small garage, something like that, to house a couple of things. And on the inside, we've got our Rinnai tankless water heater. And that is an indoor unit. I talked to Rinnai and I originally was going to put an outdoor unit out here, but the clearances were so large I couldn't do this. Couldn't have this one in this space. And this space was specifically designed to hold a tankless water heater. So they said go with an indoor unit and just vent right out of the side and it's going to work perfect. And so they have approved this and everything works just fine. It's not fully hooked up just yet, but there it sits and it's where it's supposed to be and all the clearances are perfect. The other side, well, did I just go through puberty? The other side is going to hold the LP tank that's going to supply the gas for the stove. Now this thing does have gas on the bottom of it, but it's going to have to go with a 100-pound tank that will probably sit over here once this is in its permanent parking spot. So there will be a 100-pound tank because these guys are fairly hungry for gas. They are thirsty for gas when it's heating water. So you need at least a minimum of a 100-pound tank. That's what Rinnai was telling me. Now you can test it with a 20 or 30 just like you can at your house, but you'll be going through tanks pretty quickly. So this tank that's going to go right in this spot right here is going to pop in through this wall right here and go and supply up in the kitchen where the 4-burner stove is going to be. But and then I just have these nice little latches back here, nice little latches right there. So I need to lock this thing up at night so nobody can come in and get that Rinnai water heater. So I just turn these. It's going to be hard to do with a camera in my hand, but I just turn them like that. And there we go. And then I can lock it, and now we're secure. But we'll unlock it for right now. All right, so now let me show you how to build this thing. All right, so the first thing you want to do is make the framing for the utility shed. And there are 5 studs across the back of the tiny house, so I made 5 frames. Except that's going to be a problem. I'll show you why in just a second. Here's our 5 studs to attach to. And here's where the problem is. You can see on the outside I have the jacks, and the handles to the jacks were in the way. So there's no way that I could actually put the framing on the outside corners. So that was going to shorten up my utility shed by a couple feet on the inside. But in the end, it's all going to work out just fine. So here I've used some plywood, some 11/32 plywood, and just put on the left and the right wall and used the same stuff and made just a little base down on the bottom. All right, quick note with this plywood. This 11/32 plywood is going to work perfectly for our little exterior shed here, and we've put on the sides, but this plywood has 2 sides to it. So this is a little bit more smooth side here, and the other side of this plywood has knots in it. Now, if you're going for that look, a little bit more naughty, K-N-O-T-T-Y? N-A-U-G-H-T-Y? No, not that one. Sorry. But if you're looking for a little bit of a naughty look, well then you want to use this side. But if you're looking for something smooth, because I'm going to be staining it, then this is the side that you want to use. And here's what it looks like with the 2 sides on and the top. So now I'm using a table saw and going to be cutting the top piece for the face frame, and I have to cut it at that angle for the roof pitch, which just happens to be a 1/12 pitch. And now I'm putting on the bottom piece of the face frame. And don't worry about all those UPC codes that you see on the end of the board there. I'm going to take all of those off and sand it down. So now I'm installing the right and then the left and then the middle part of the face frame. So here I'm putting on the Grace ice and water high temp barrier. Basically I had some left over from when I did the roof, and so I just took a little small section and used that for a little utility shed. Is that overkill? Absolutely, probably so, but the darn thing's not going to leak at all, and it's going to work great for our little purpose here. So it has this self-adhesive backing. You put on the front first, peel off the back, and then just kind of trim the edges and trim the sides, and that's how you do it. It's perfect. Next I'm installing the drip edge, and this is the type of screw that you're going to use. The same screw that I used up on the roof, and this is just some leftover drip edge that I had from the roof, and so I had just enough to be able to do the left and the right side and the front piece, and just use those little screws and everything's going to hold down tight. And this is what it looks like once you get the 3 pieces on. And yes, I need to use some silicone. I used some silicone on the corners there just to make those sealed up, and along the back side as well. So now on to making the doors. I used just a few pieces of tongue and groove pine that I had, stained those already, and glued them together. And now here I am using the brad nailer and just putting on a piece of trim to hold it all together, and we'll do one on the bottom and one on the top. Glued those down as well, and then there's going to be a cross section piece going across the middle, which you'll see in just a second. So to get your cut lines just perfect, lay this piece across the top and get it right where you want it, and then mark on both sides, top and bottom, where you want it, and then you can go to the table saw and just cut those off. Now I'm going to come back and glue this all together and secure it with brad nails. And here I needed to build something for the hinges to attach to, so I just had to make these 2 little support blocks, let's call them, and then yes, I stained those. But got those in place, just held them down by glue and brad nails again, and that's going to give us a support surface for the hinges to attach to, and that's going to hold the door up. And by the way, I definitely recommend installing the hinges onto the door first, because it's going to make it so nice and easy for you to install it then onto the utility shed. So now you can see why I put the hinges on first. Well, you want to put some shims along the bottom just to keep the door up just a little bit so it has room to swing. Get it all lined up, and then you're going to drill some pilot holes over into your face frame before screwing it in so you don't split the wood. And that's all there is to it. Once I get this one done, I'll do the exact same thing for the left door. All right, so now that we have both doors made, I can start working on the top, which is some cedar plank shingles. And so let's just get a quick glance at this and kind of walk our way through it. Pretty simple little task to do here. And this isn't large, you know, this thing's only 51.5 inches wide, so, and you know, roughly 17 inches deep. So it's not too big. This is pretty easy. So one stack of shingles will be more than plenty to cover this little area. And so just putting down the first row, you need to separate them out by about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. I used my framing square to make sure that we were square starting out and that we had about the same amount of lip. I just chose 3/4 as my lip over here, and I chose 3/4 on the side as well. And just used the framing square and put it up against and just went along, and that went just fine to keep me on track, and just made sure that my spacing was good enough. You know, anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 will work just fine. And just randomly put them in. And then coming back, I started over here on this next row up. I knew I wanted to be 5.5 inches back, 5.5 inches back. I marked a line, or marked a spot, and drew a line all the way across. And that's my guide point to where these are going to sit right up on that line. These pieces, got them all laid out here. They're, you know, a little long. This is one piece, and it sits, you know, that far in. So what you want to do is take it, flip it around, put it up against the wall, and mark your spot right there where we're going to have to cut. And then I'm going to come over and bring it to just my circular saw, and we'll cut the piece off, bring it up here, and tack it down. Now, the other thing is, you don't want to have your lines line right up. You want to at least give 1 inch to 1.5 inch spacing, so it will just look correct and function properly. We want this thing to shed water off of this utility shed. So don't bring your line lined up with that. That'll just look silly and not work correctly. So just keep it at about 1 inch, and that'll work just fine. So just randomly grab pieces, and you can see, and that works just fine. So now we're going to knock out the last couple of pieces here and put that on, and then we're going to do one more row starting from this side, and we'll work back going that way, and we'll do the same thing, another 5.5 inches, and then we'll be done. All right, there you have it. Hopefully you found this helpful and you found some value in this, and you can go out now and build your own utility shed and place it on whatever surface that you want to put it on your house, put it on your tiny home if you happen to have one. And it doesn't necessarily have to have a tankless water heater or even a water heater, or a LP tank as storage in here. You can use it for whatever purpose that you need, but it comes in real handy to have on the back side of this or on your house, I'm sure. But anyway, hopefully you found it helpful, and I will see you in the next video.